Welcome back to another tabletop review and field strip. This is a cool one that I bet you haven't seen before. From Cosaint Arms, we've got a COS11 coming up next on GBGuns. COS11 looks a bit like a 1911, and there's a lot of guns out there that do. This is not, however, a 1911. Has quite a few things that are a bit different about it. Now, this is a small company, relatively new company, so you're not getting a whole bunch of extra fanfare in the box. You are getting two Chip McCormick mags, which is great. You notice these are 9mm, 8-round mags, because we opted for 9mm. There's also an envelope that has a nice sheet of instructions and information. I removed that because that has some of my own personal identifying information on it, which I don't care to put on the internet. So, sorry folks. There's the company once again. Let's get this out of the way and take a look at this guy. Hopefully you're already picking up on some cues of what makes this different. I'm pretty excited about this. First things first, of course, we're going to show clear. You can see nice and pretty, man. That is smooth. The founder of Cosaint Arms spent a lot of time with another company you probably know better of, STI. They build guns like this SPS Pantera. This is not an STI, it's an SPS. But these 2011s, which are a double stack, this beast is 21 plus 1 rounds of 9mm, and everything from here down is polymer, with the rest being metal, traditional 1911-ish. The advantage to that, and why these are popular in competition, is you end up with a top front weight bias. That keeps the muzzle down and makes them very flat shooting. These things are, of course, massive, right? This is not something that you could walk around with and conceal. So Greg, who founded Cosaint Arms, said, hey, why don't we take that same technology and concept and put it in something concealable? So you're getting 1911 controls and feel, but much, much better weight balance and some advancements that have come along in, say the last century or so. In coming from such a prestigious company and finally getting the freedom to do what he wanted to, you notice that, well, I'll be pointing out there's a lot of little touches to this that make it different from just your standard 1911 styled gun. Let's get a start on that. Now, as I go over this gun, if you hear some background rustling, that's because not just Tactikitty Senior, but also the new Tactikitty Junior have decided to join me in the studio today. Normally, they don't care too much, but I think they're about as excited about this gun as I am, and they want to check it out. So once again, we're showing clear here, and let's take a walk around and take a look at things. First thing that I noticed right away is this step. You can see the light hitting it there. This angled cut down here, which really slims the slide to the frame, kind of melts it down in there. 9-inch barrel. You can see the bushing style system is different from your traditional 1911. More on that when we field strip it. We do have a rail. Now, all these guns are built to order customs. You decide what kind of slide you want from a couple different options, if you want the rail or not, colors, all of that. Nice front serrations for press checks. I hope you guys can hear how smooth that is. And then here's our polymer for the lower. And one of the things that I immediately noticed when I picked this thing up is not only we have some radius upward, but also back. This nice scoop here really allows the middle finger to get on there with some pressure, which is good for single-handed shooting, which happens in defensive shooting, and it also allows large hands like mine to fit fairly well. I'm getting 2.5 fingers on this 8-round 9mm, which is pretty good. Nice texturing on the bottom. You can see a little bit of a bevel to serve as a magazine funnel. It extends, well, it ends right at the grips. Magazines sit just about flush in, which is great. Sometimes these tips here can end up cutting a pinky finger. Not an issue here. And we've got a relatively, I want to say flat slash bob cut style backstrap, but it's all rounded here to contour. There's no steps like you normally have on a classic gun. It makes it really comfortable. Extended grip safety that also sticks out far enough to keep you from getting any hammer bite. Safety itself is nice and long, with good positive clicks. Novak sights. These are night sights. It's 3 dots. And if our camera will focus for us, we can take a look at that slide to frame fit. Everything nice and tight. Our barrel lockup is indeed solid as well. Just a very clean, purpose-built look and feel to this thing, and just slick and gorgeous. To continue, we will of course do our field strip, and you might notice we got a full-length guide rod in there. This is where some of the internet experts that love to comment are about to lose their minds, because I'm going to take this apart a bit differently than you might have seen before, but believe me, it's the easiest way to do something with a full-length guide rod. See, there's that hole in there. You take a paper clip, and this is a custom-built tool, as in every time you apply it, it custom forms. Now we can release our slide. We're taking the slide to where that traditional window spot is to pop out our slide catch and release. With that out of there, we can now remove the slide from the frame. Cosaint arms. Clean and simple, no extra unnecessary junk in here. Very nicely machined. Another thing that the founder wanted to do, we almost lost it, is, well, there's a couple different ways to build 1911s. One is you take a bunch of really crude parts and spend lots of man hours fitting them, and then you end up with a very nicely tightly fit gun. That's great, so long as the person doing that tight fitting knows what they're doing and is having a good day. When they're not, you end up with inconsistencies. The other is to just take factory machine parts. See how that paper clip came in handy there? Pulled our recoil system all out at once. You take factory machine parts, hoping they're at good standard, and slap them all together. When they're not, you end up with fitment issues. And then there's kind of an in-between. The in-between is what Cosaint Arms is going with here. The theory being, we do have, and you've seen on plenty of our tabletop videos from plenty of guns from around the world, modern manufacturing can make this stuff tightly enough, cleanly enough, and good enough tolerances so that there's not necessarily the same need to hand fit everything. Still put a little bit of hand attention on there, and now you end up with a wonderful gun with far fewer man hours required. And since this is a US built gun, man hours are expensive. Nice to do that to keep the prices reasonable. Now these are build-to-order custom guns. They are not inexpensive. The price range, as far as what you might be interested in, you're just going to have to go check out their website and get a feel for what they cost. I was looking at the back end there because it almost looks like it's curved thanks to that bevel edge along there. One thing I noticed on this that I certainly have had to complain about with a lot of factory guns is sharp edges around here do not exist on this Cosaint Arms COS11. And that's great because maybe not in the first range trip, maybe not in the 50th range trip, but eventually if you're shooting the guns off enough, handling them enough, running your hand over the top enough, sharp edges here will cut your hand. And then you just feel silly, especially if it's your 100th range trip and you already consider yourself super competent and confident with the gun. Yeah, and not only will it cut your hand, but that's also the kind of thing that can snag clothing or cause those tears. You don't see it the first time you wear the shirt, but maybe the 10th time you carry the gun in that shirt, holes start to appear on your shirt. That does not seem like it's going to happen with the COS11. So we got a recoil assembly out. I'm just going to leave it captured here. You can see how this bushing system works. It is a steel rod, single spring, and that nice fat barrel, the end of which flare is a little larger. That's sort of serving like the barrel bushing. Nice shiny feed ramp. We'll check for chamber support, as we always do, using nozzler match. As I've said, probably close to 800 times already, use the nozzler match because it is the most consistently made ammunition that I have experienced to date, including some testing. A little snug there, but once it's in, so we are lacking a little bit of chamber support along that bottom edge in there, which is fairly signature of 1911. What does that tell me? Well, it means I'm probably not going to shoot any reloads or questionable ammo through this gun. But you know, if you're going to the trouble of a custom built gun, I hope you're never shooting questionable reloads or really cheap ammo. Other than that, everything is very nicely constructed on this thing. Everything's just so smooth. You can see this is a 70 series, so it doesn't have that safety plunger in the back. I know that doesn't necessarily mean it's 70 series, but like the 70 series, it does not have the safety plunger in the back. Some folks don't like that because they say it can interfere with trigger feel. Speaking of trigger feel, when I get this back together, I'll show you something very impressive with this guy. Let me get that bushing all the way in there. So with all of this placed back together just like it did when I took it apart, I'm now going to get it back together. Make sure that eyelet has lined up through that window. Drop our pin partially in. Pull the slide until our window is lined up there. And pop that in. Quick functions check. And we're good to go. So the trigger on this, and this is noted in that sheet of paper that came with it, is set at about 3.5 pounds and will lighten by about a half pound with use. 1911 triggers are, well, they're what makes people hate striker fire triggers. Watch this. We come straight back to a wall, clean break, reset, clicks, and that click is the break. So that should make for a gun that is easy to shoot fast. I think it'll be even easier to shoot fast because we have that weight imbalance of the gun being sort of forward and up biased thanks to the polymer bottom and steel up front, plus the steel guide rod. And by going with the rail system here, even though I don't personally mount stuff on every gun I have, that is a beefier dust cover than the traditional 1911 style, and that adds more material up here, which also makes it forward biased. It's a small gun, a little on the small side for my hands. Tia loves it already just in handling it. When we get this out to the range, we will of course do our trademark what's for dinner test, running 10 different loads through it of steel case, brass case, aluminum case, nickel plated brass, hollow points, full metal jackets, truncated, you name it, we'll have them in there and we'll see how this guy runs. I don't expect any issues with as smooth as everything feels and as generous as that feed ramp is. Everything should feed nicely. Very handsome looking gun. It's cool, you know, not every day we get in custom pieces like this. So I'm excited for Cosaint Arms to see how this does, because I think it's going to perform really nicely. And that trigger is just addictive. It is really crisp. Now my first pistol was a 1911. I had custom work done to it eventually, and came to learn what could be nice about the 1911 style. And I think folks who complain about the overall design, one, don't know enough about it yet, maybe aren't maintaining their guns properly, but two, if you've shut off your mind to this design, you're missing out on a lot, because a lot has changed in the 100+ years, and there's been a lot of experience in those 100+ years to figure out how to make one of these run nicely. So that's the Cosaint Arms COS11 Tabletop Review and Field Strip. We will get this out to the range as soon as we can. Man, just a handsome gun. You know, it's not gaudy, but it's not boring either. Love it. We'll get it out to the range soon. Thanks for watching.